All right, let's get started. So hi everyone, my name is Ashley and I'm a library technician here at the Santa Barbara Public Library. Thank you for joining us for today's Trail Talks. We wanted to send a big thank you to James Wapitish, who is our library partner for this Trail Talk series. Just wanted to say a big thank you to James for helping and coordinating these events with us. If anyone here is interested in following James's adventures, you can check out his blog at songsofthewilderness.com. James will also be our next Trail Talk speaker. His next talk is titled Into the Mountains, Trails and Tales of the Santa Barbara Backcountry. And the next Trail Talk will be in person at the Faulkner Gallery at the Central Library. So mark your calendars for September 15th at 2:30 for our first in-person Trail Talks. Before I introduce our speakers this evening, I wanted to say anyone who has any questions during the presentation to please put them in the chat. If we have time at the end of the presentation, we'll try to get to your questions. This presentation will also be recorded and we plan to put it up on our library YouTube page. Those who registered for the presentation through the library site will also be sent the link once it's uploaded to YouTube. So let's hit the trails. Founded in 1962, Santa Barbara County Search and Rescue is dedicated to providing professional search and rescue to the Sheriff's Office and citizens of Santa Barbara County. Their goal is to locate, access, render aid, and provide quality accident services to persons in distress and to minimize injury and loss of life. Let me introduce Nelson Trichler and Susie Thielman as they join us today and share about what Search and Rescue does, the history of the organization, the types of calls they go out on, the training they go through. They will also cover some of the things you can do as a hiker to avoid needing their services, what to do if you're lost, and when to report an overdue hiker. Thank you so much. And without further ado, I'll pass the floor to Susie and Nelson.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We welcome this opportunity to share a little bit about what Santa Barbara County Search and Rescue does for the citizens in the county. Just as a way of background, I've been on the team for a number of years. Probably have participated in close to 3,000 SAR missions over my tenure. I love the backcountry. My wife and I love to go out hiking. You'll see us 2 or 3 days each week out on the trails. So we really just enjoy where we live and try to get out on the trails as much as possible. So I think that's enough for me. Susie, do you want to throw anything in about yourself?
I've only been on the team for 4 years, but I've known many members of the team for quite a long time because I was the EMT instructor. I'm a retired registered nurse and proud to be on the team.
Okay, well, great. With that, let's kind of get into it. So we want to do, Ashley, I think we want to now share the screen. So I'm going to see if I can do that. So our topic tonight is staying safe on the trails, and that's kind of a broad topic. As part of that, we will talk about search and rescue in the county, some of the things that we do, some of the common rescues that we go on, how people join the team, what type of qualifications do we have, the time commitment, and then we'll just have a kind of a general overview of the team and give you some maybe some pointers, recommendations, some hints and suggestions of how to stay safe out on the trails. And then we love to hear your questions. So I understand that if you have a question, you just type it in on the chat and then it will be directed to us at the end of this formal presentation. So with that, let me start, and then I'll go for a few minutes and I'll turn it over to Susie. So Santa Barbara County Search and Rescue. Well, we have some history. It started about 60 years ago when a group of outdoor enthusiasts wanted to get together and provide service to the county. And as part of that, they had a variety of background, mostly in climbing and camping and things that people normally do in the backcountry. Back then, there's actually 3 teams that was formed. There was one in the South County, Santa Barbara County, which was called the Los Padres Search and Rescue. There was a team that was established in Lompoc called Lompoc Search and Rescue, and one in Santa Maria. And those teams were independent teams. They responded independently, recruited independently, but we are all under the umbrella of the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department. who in the state of California has a responsibility for wilderness search and rescue in the unincorporated areas. These three teams worked independently up until 2001. And in 2001, all three teams came together in a merger. And we are now under one team name, Santa Barbara County Search and Rescue. We train as one team, we recruit as one team, we respond as one team. So when you hear Santa Barbara County Search and Rescue, we deal with the entire county. That's our playground. Oop, gotta go this way. There we go. So we are a professional search and rescue team. We're volunteers. None of us get paid. We spend actually our own money and efforts to join the team and then stay with the team and go out on calls. So our mission is to access and then rescue people essentially off the beaten path. We have resources and training and experience to go out and find people in very unusual circumstances that are a few miles and sometimes hours away from medical services. So we need to find them, we need to stabilize them, and then we need to get them out to a higher level of care. So as part of our mission over the years, our skill set has evolved. And I'm not going to go through all the things that are listed on the screen, but you can see there's quite a lot of skills that we train for. And a lot of these are specialized to only the search and rescue team in the county. So no other first responder agency can do some of the things that we have listed here. On many other things, we work hand in hand with the local fire departments, County Fire, Montecito Fire, Santa Barbara City, in order to do mutual aid, such as rescues in the front country. We also work quite extensively with our aviation department for helicopter rescue operations. So who are we? Well, we range age-wise from early 20s to we have people in the mid to late 70s. We're looking for people that have an interest in being outside, being comfortable, and wanting to help others in the backcountry. We are volunteers, so we all have to pay our way in Santa Barbara to live here. So we have a variety of different careers. We have people who are executives in the insurance business, engineers, people who work in the automobile industry, financial, medical professionals. So, the key, I think, is to have a commitment, but also to be in a position where you have some flexibility. That's important because we're on call 24/7, which we can get calls at all times of the day. Majority of our calls happen in the evenings or on weekends, but we do have quite a few calls that do occur during the weekday itself. So having the ability, the flexibility to leave your work or a home situation is really important. But hopefully we have a large enough team that, hey, if it's not your day, if you can't get away from a work commitment, or your son's doing that year-end play that he's been practicing for months for, and you have to be there, that's okay. We understand that. And we have enough people on the team that we can field an initial response. And then if it goes on, then we have other people that kind of backfill positions as needed. The other thing that I think is kind of a key, and is a willingness, a desire to be part of a team, to be part of an organization that has a common goal to help others. As I mentioned, we have people from all walks of life and careers. And when the pager goes off, that essentially drops to the side and everyone comes together and uses their training that we do on the team. And we have a very specific structure command-wise, and we will then have a professional response to deal with the emergency that we need to. We have a lot of training. Part of it is wilderness medical training. We have a basic minimum requirement that everyone has to have the CPR card and basic first aid, but I would say most people on the team have at least the EMT certification, and beyond that, some form of wilderness first aid or wilderness EMT training. We deal with a challenging environment and sometimes in the backcountry, especially when the closest ambulance might be a 2-hour walk via stretcher for a subject down a trail. So having the ability to care for a subject who is injured is important, and that's a little bit different skill set than a normal ambulance worker might have. So something happens. How are we called? So typically a call comes in through the 911 system, and that could be via a landline, or more often than not these days, it's a cell phone. Either someone is on the trail, the subject fell and injured and there's someone with him, or the subject has, the injured subject has a cell phone, and they dial 911. So right now, all 911 calls, they route through the highway patrol, but they eventually gets to the local dispatch center. We are dispatched out of the county dispatch center that's located here. If you know where the county sheriff department is on the road going up to the dump, well, that's where the dispatch center is located. So we are activated through that, and it could be either a rescue or a search, and there are different entities. So if someone falls down and injures themselves on San Ysidro Trail, given its location, given it's a medical, we will pop up along with other medical provider agencies such as Montecito Fire or maybe the aviation department for an automatic dispatch. So our phones will ring with a text message to respond, and then we will respond to our stations. Our main station is in Santa Barbara, right at the foot of 154. We also have a station up at San Ynez Airport. We will then gather up and determine what is needed and what the type of call is, and then we will respond in one of our 1015 owned specialized off-road vehicles. Now, we try to get a team out within 15 to 20 minutes of being paged. It's important for us to get moving as fast as possible on a rescue for a medical situation. Now, if it's a search, someone's missing, someone's in the backcountry, they haven't shown up back at home or at work. So we try to do a little more research. We try to determine, is this a actual search or is this a missing person? And is that person within the designated search area? There's been many cases where, we're searching for someone and we realize or find out that that person is maybe down at the local bar having a drink and relaxing. So that occasionally happens. But then there are searches where it could be a multi-day search where we're out for several days looking for people in our backcountry. So it runs a gamut from maybe a 30 to 60 minute rescue on a trail to a multi-day type of search operation. But essentially, if you have a need for us, dial 911, tell them that, situation, you're injured or you're missing somebody, and someone went missing and hasn't shown up out of a hike or backpacking trip. And then that will start the system to activate us. Okay, Susie, I think you're going to take a few of these slides now.
Okey-doke. I think Nelson has already covered pretty much what we do cover. We respond to lost hikers, missing hikers, wandering persons. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And it's all throughout Santa Barbara County. So it's North County, South County. Front country trails are where we do most of our work. And there are backcountry trails that we'll cover too. We can also be searching for wanderers with our Project Lifesaver in urban areas. These might be people who have a medical condition or Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, something where they may tend to get lost in the city itself. Next slide. So I think the main misconception that we wanted to get across today was, do we charge for rescues? And we do not. I don't believe we ever have charged for rescues. We don't have any plan to charge for any rescues. This is just our mission and we enjoy doing it. And we've kind of dedicated a lot of time and effort to making that happen, so we don't have to charge. Next one. And then that just dovetails with we are not paid. We are under the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department, and of course they are professionals and have paid employees, but none of them are actual members of the search and rescue team. So our budget comes either from what they will support us with or fundraising. And we are not law enforcement officers. We don't have the ability to, and nor do we want to give tickets or charges or anything like that. So I have to give a little address our main topic here. So how do you stay safe on the trail? Mainly it's self-awareness, situational awareness, the ability to communicate, and later on we'll talk about group awareness. So for self-awareness, I think it's really important that you know who you are. What's your strength? What's your weaknesses? Do you have ankle problems? Do you have knee issues? Should you be using hiking poles? What kind of boots should you be wearing? Do you need something that covers your ankle? Something with smooth soles will slip easily on our kind of marbly trails. So you don't want that. What kind of pack are you carrying? Do you have a lot of weight? Is it too much weight for what you are in condition for? The other part of self-awareness is, are you prone to muscle cramps? If that's the case, then you want to have electrolytes, not just water. Don't drink only water. That'll wash out all the salts from your system. So you need electrolytes and water. You have to know how much knowledge, or usually what we encounter is a lack of knowledge of the area. We get a lot of out-of-towners from Chicago, from LA. We even rescued people from Moscow this year. But they come to the area and they don't know our backcountry. So, and when I go somewhere, and there's a little slide over here of me in the Pacific Northwest, I had no knowledge of exactly how to handle hiking in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a lot smarter now. And also you have to know what your hiking experience is. So a lot of self-awareness will keep you out of trouble. There's certain mindsets that we all have, and one we've dubbed missionitis. So you have a plan, maybe you're going to do the whole Sisquat loop. And no matter how sick you are, you're going to continue going down the trail. Well, that's missionitis. You probably should have stopped and turned back and taken care of yourself. The other one is wishful thinking. Oh, just around the corner, I can't find the trail now, but around the corner, oh, I know that trail is going to be a lot better. Another mindset is embarrassment. I don't want to call. We would just assume you called early and have us be able to handle it easily. So there may be a mindset of being embarrassed or ashamed that you are in trouble. You should also be aware of what clothing and what you have in your pack. Is it correct for you and for the situation and for what might come up? So if you have self-awareness, and you actually pack and plan with that in mind, you can stay a lot safer on the trail. Dovetailing on that is situational awareness. What's the weather? Like today, it was 70 degrees here by More Mesa. It was 90 to 100 degrees up on our front country trails, up some of those canyons. So it's not always predictable by what it's like in Santa Barbara, what you're going to encounter on the trails. Also, is it going to get hotter? If you're out for a couple of overnights, is it going to get hotter? Is it going to rain? Etc. Do you know the trail route and the conditions of the trail? We get this a lot where people look on the map and they see, oh, especially bicyclists, they look on the map and they see what looks like a road. Well, it hasn't been a road for probably 30 years. And so it takes a lot longer for them to travel that route. And now they're out of water and they're in trouble. So a way to know the current trail conditions is take advantage of hikospadres.com. It's a crowdsourced website that actually has all the trails in Santa Barbara County on it. And you can look at it and see if you have a more current listing of what the condition of that trail is today. Maps are super important. Look at your contour lines, look at your elevation gains and losses. A lot of people don't realize that if they want to go back to the hot springs, let's say Little Caliente Hot Springs, you have several thousand feet of elevation gain and loss, and that will change the hiking for you. We have a lot of southern exposure on our front country trails. And again, that gets people, especially in this hot weather, in trouble. Water, 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 we don't have a lot of it. So when you see a little blue line on the map, you may think that that's where you can get water on the trail, but chances are that that's seasonal. So be just very wary of that. Time of day and your length of travel. You want to start early when it's in the cool of the day, or if it's really cold, you want to start maybe later. Look at how long you think it's going to take and try to plan your trip accordingly. So self-awareness, situational awareness, and then if you do get in trouble, communication is super important. So you might be carrying a cell phone, and front country, you might be able to get out on a cell phone. You might be carrying a satellite phone, which is great. They don't always work, but they're pretty good. You might be carrying a communication device like an inReach or a Spot. So that's, I call it the best thing in your first aid kit is the ability to communicate. So what we usually, the bottom picture we have here is the Sisquoc. That's on the Sisquoc Loop. This happens to be right next to the Manzana Schoolhouse. This is the country that we're really used to around here, but other people aren't. And right now that area is completely dry. The Manzana is dry at the schoolhouse, as is the Sisquoc. Next slide. So a lot of people talk about and debate about the 10 essentials for hiking. We could spend a lot of time on this. There's some general things that work. One is a map. So you could have a GPS. There's lots of different GPS maps. Our team likes CalTopo, which we also call SARTopo, and Gaia. All Trails is really popular, as is Adventus, and I just Googled it on my phone, and there's like 10 different GPSs. So if you have a digital map, that's awesome. If you have an inReach, you will also have their maps. The problem with the digital maps is that when your battery goes out, or if you don't have a solar charger or backup batteries, then you no longer have your digital maps. So it's also nice to have actually an old-fashioned paper map of the area. You should have some sort of first aid kit, know how to use it. Pocket knives are awesome. Flashlights and headlamps with extra batteries. We'll get people who are out for a hike. They don't realize how long it's going to take. All they have is their cell phone as a flashlight, which might not work very well. And now they're in the dark and they're not used to it. They maybe have some fear of the night. They see the lights glancing off eyes, and that makes them even more worried. So having a flashlight or a headlamp is super important. Just basics is sunglasses and sunscreen. I used to think whistles were kind of silly, but they are very handy and helpful for us to hear you. Sometimes you can't hear somebody yelling, and a whistle, that noise will travel a little bit better. Compasses, our phones almost always have a compass on them. Some of the phone apps will have the lat long, which is super important for us to know, to find out where you are. Other ones don't. And a lot of people lose track of where's north and south, especially if they're not from our area, because south is our mountains go east-west, and so they might get very turned around. But a compass or something that lets you know where north is, if you've really looked at your trail ahead of time, will help. So again, things that you might always have with you is some sort of emergency shelter. So you can go ultralight and have just a trash bag. You can have a poncho, whatever, but you should have something. In cold weather, you want to make sure you have the right clothing for the cold. So if you've ever been to Dulce in December, it is like being in a refrigerator after 3 o'clock. And all the water that you bring up to your camp is going to freeze. So be aware of where you're going, what the temperatures are going to be, and have the proper clothing for that. Extra food, yep, you got to have energy. You have to keep yourself fueled for your engine. Clothing, again, depends. The weather can change. It can be nice down here, and up at McKinley Springs, it can be sleet and snow. So you want to be having the clothing that you need. Extra water around here, you just can't say that enough. And along a lot of our trails, you will not be able to filter water or find water. If it's just a nice day like today, half a liter per hour of hiking is super good, but you have to know what your fitness level is and know what you need. Matches and fire starter, kind of hate to say that in fire country here, but it is important that you have something in case you do need this to start a fire. We've talked a little bit about cell phones. You can have some sort of satellite phone, but again, this is having communication for if you do get in trouble. Plus, it's nice to be able to communicate with your family. If maybe you're going to be delayed or you're coming home early, you want to be able to tell them what your plans are. Because if they expect you home and you haven't told them you're going to stay out an extra night, they'll probably be calling 911 and will be dispatched looking for you.
Hey, Susie, I'll jump in real quickly. Back to the matches and fire starter. Yes, in today's environment, and the lack of water and the dryness we have out there, you have to be very, very careful if you are going to start a fire, if you're cold or you're trying to help someone locate you. So if you do start a fire, you definitely want to clear the area, get some rocks to put around, like a fire ring, and try to have some type of dirt. I don't think you'll probably be carrying a shovel, but some people do for, to go out and use the facilities, the local backcountry facilities. They carry a shovel, but you want to have something that you can put out a fire if it starts to get out of hand. It's also a signaling device, and I'll give you an example. Some years ago, this is back when there was no real smartphones. Some people had some flip phones, the early days of cell phones. We had a group of 4 teenagers that were out hiking, and they were at the Upper Mission Ridge area, a White Mountain area, or we call it the playground. They got lost in the trails. The trails weren't very defined, but they got lost. We got called. I was able to talk to one of the person who had a cell phone, so they had a cell signal. It was at night. We were having our teams hike into the area to try to locate them. And I asked them if they had any lighting sources, and they said, no, we don't have any flashlights, or the flashlight they did have was not functional, batteries ran out. And they said, well, all we have is this Bic lighter. Oh, but there's no fuel in it. And I said, okay, in a few moments, you're going to hear some pop, pop, pop noises of a helicopter coming up over a ridge. When you do that, when you hear them, I want you to hold your Bic lighter up in the air and start flicking your Bic. So that's what they did. And our helicopter pilots who use night vision goggles to fly at night with, as they came over the ridge 10 miles away from San Ynez Airport, they saw that that individual flicking his Bic, and they were able to zoom right in and locate where the subjects were. And then the helicopter crew helped coordinate our ground searchers to hike in to meet with the lost subjects, and then we hiked them out. So just one example of the tools that we use that can be very beneficial to finding you out in the backcountry. And as far as the cell phones are concerned, Susie mentioned that many of the cell phones, smartphones these days, have a compass in them that will give you a lat long coordinate. If you have knowledge and you can change the format of the cell phone, we'd love to have it in degrees decimals, but any way that you have it, we will take it and we will convert it to something that we can use easily. Now, when you call 911, any phone that's several years old will automatically have embedded in it satellite connectivity. And because of that, your lat long location will show up at the CAD computer at dispatch. Now, depending where you are, we don't know. Well, that lat long may come through based on the proximity of the closest cell tower, or it may come directly from your phone. The satellite capability within your phone itself might be sent out. It really depends on your location, where you are, and what type of single strength that you have on your phone. So the dispatcher may ask you some questions as far as your location. And one of the things they'll ask too is, what is your cell phone battery life? They want to know, do you have 70% battery left, or you have 10% battery life? Because whenever you open a mapping app on your cell phone, it will drain your phone very, very quickly. One of the things you can do to minimize that drain is take the Wi-Fi off, because people, when you're out in the backcountry away from the local Wi-Fi, your phone is still trying to look for a Wi-Fi signal and hook up, and that takes a lot of power to do that. So those are just a couple of thoughts as far as getting found by single devices, and how your cell phone helps us find you for a call. Okay, so let's move on.
So these are the common reasons that we get called out into the backcountry or on our front country trails. So if you know how to recognize or treat or avoid these types of problems, then you won't lead us on the trail. So, and we'll talk about heat-related illnesses in just a minute, as well as leg and ankle injuries. Lost hikers is one thing. The other one is overdue hikers, or clipped out. It's easier to go up than down. So we get people scrambling up the screen, but they can't get down. We call it being clipped out. And Project Lifesaver is that program where someone who's prone to wandering, either from a dementia, Alzheimer's, or autism, can wear a transponder around their wrist with a specific frequency. And then we have the ability to receive that and directional equipment, so we can go spread out through the community to try to find that particular person. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do if you do need help, and one of them is to call early. We would rather get things started early rather than have you wait. The other one is to describe where you are. Maybe you can give us the coordinates, and that's awesome. But sometimes all you can do is describe it. And I've heard of Nelson knowing exactly where that is by what the description is. And maybe we can talk you out without having to actually put people on the trail to find you. The other one is we want to know what your situation is. So when you call for help, we want to know, are you injured or not? Are you just lost? That's not just. Are you cliffed out? Are you sick? Are you having issues because you have no light and you can't see the trail? And usually we want you to stay put. Once you've contacted us, it's easier to find you if we have your current coordinates and you don't leave, because it's harder to find a moving target. So heat related, lately this has been just a huge issue on our trails. You have to have an awareness of what your capabilities are and try not to get into trouble. It's easier said than done. But the main thing is to prevent it. Once you realize that you're tired or you're dizzy, maybe you're a little weak, maybe you have muscle cramps, you need to stop right away. Hydrate if you can, get some electrolytes in, get in some shade, pour water on you and fan yourself. So if you can treat this heat illness early, you can avoid going into heat stroke. You should also have a group awareness. If you're hiking with someone else, you need to be watching them to see if they're getting in trouble. If it's somebody who's usually talkative and now they're really quiet, that would not be normal. So look at them, see if they need to stop and take a break. You can only hike or go as fast as the slowest mule. So don't be pushing somebody who isn't up to your level of conditioning to go at your level. Let them take breaks. So the one thing about heat stroke is it's a common misconception, and it may even be on this slide, to look for sweating and no sweating. Someone can be in heat stroke with sweating. You can move on that continuum from heat exhaustion to heat stroke and still have wet skin and wet clothes. What's really the key is confusion. If they start being altered, slurred speech, not making sense, not quite with it, then they're tipping over the edge from heat exhaustion into heat stroke, and you're truly in trouble. You need to just hurry up and cool that person down. I think there's another one after this slide. So because we've had so many heat, unfortunately, we did have a death of Jake Parks. The Girl Scouts and Jake's mom have mounted this campaign to try and get people to know how much trouble you can get, especially in our front country trails. So we've placed these signs, and we're going to be placing more throughout the community. I know it's kind of iffy if people are going to actually read them and follow up on them, but we really felt that something needed to be done to try to limit the number of heat illnesses that we were getting on the trail. The other thing that we don't have slides on is snake bites. And I know that they've already had talks about snake bites, so I don't want to talk about it too much, except for the treatment for a snake bite is transport to antivenom. So you need to call for help. It'd be nice to have the ability to call for help with some sort of communication device so that we can get to you faster, the helicopter can get to you faster. You can clean it, you can cover it, make sure you're in a safe area, and you want to mark the edge of the swelling and put the time on it. So about every half hour, remark that if you happen to have a pen. If you don't, not to worry. The other one is ticks. We have a lot of ticks in our backcountry. The only thing for ticks is you want to get it removed as soon as possible. So that means you need to do frequent tick checks. Okay, next one. So we do get a lot of lower extremity injuries. And I think a lot of these could have been helped if people were wearing the right shoes or if they were using hiking poles. There's certain areas on our trails that it's like walking on marbles, or if you're going through rocks and boulders, that having that extra ability to balance is really important. It doesn't really matter if you know if it's a strain, sprain, or fracture. A dislocation can be deformed and it can go back in place. The main thing is if it's pain over a bony site, if you push on the area where a bone is and it hurts, there's a degree of suspicion that that is a broken bone, that is a fracture. So you're not going to be walking out on that. You can just rest it. You can try cooling it. Most of us don't hike with ice packs. You can try splinting it, but the main thing is you're going to need to call for help. And we'll be on our way as soon as we hear from you. The other ones who get lower extremity injuries are climbers and boulders because they fall from a certain height and they get these dramatic injuries. Next one. So preventative SAR is really kind of what we're talking about. They have this cool little form over there that I don't know if anybody actually uses. The most important thing is somebody knows where you're going and what time frame that you're going to be gone. So if you don't have anybody that you've told where you're going, you could be anywhere in the world as far as we know. One thing we will do is try to find your car at the trailhead. It would be really nice if on the dash of your vehicle, you put where you're going, what your destination and route and your timing is on that. So if you could do that, that would help us an awful lot. But the main thing is to tell somebody where you're going. These are kind of our I think this is Nelson, you were going to talk about this one?
I'll start and then I'll get you to chip in here. So Susie mentioned the front country. So I would say about 75% of our calls annually are in the front country of the county. And so the typical common areas: Hot Springs, Tunnel Trail, Rattlesnake Canyon, Hezecita, Lizard's Mouth area. Right now, Hot Springs seems to be the most frequently rescue area that we respond to. Prior to the debris flow, Hot Springs was not very frequented. And the hot springs weren't developed. And since the debris flow, if you've been up in that area, you know that the amount of work that people have put in to develop those springs into pools is pretty impressive. But we get a lot of now people that are looking for the hot springs. They've heard about in social media or meet people word of mouth. They said this is a place to go look at. It's not uncommon when I'm out hiking in that area. I might be on one of the fire roads, Edison fire roads, either coming down from Cold Springs or maybe coming from the east from Saddle Rock or Girard Trail. And I run into people who are in flip-flops, in bathing suits, in a towel, and they're looking for the hot springs. And they're going completely opposite direction of where the hot springs are. So, I turn them around and kind of give them some directions how to get up there. But because of that lack of knowledge, that turns into sometimes searches for people who get lost, can't find the hot springs, and especially at night, and they don't have sufficient lighting. But they have a cell phone, so they call, and we go out and we find them. But Tunnel Trail, Inspirational Point, Seven Falls area, the ridge we often call Dragon's Back, that goes up out of Seven Falls to Arlington Peak. That's seen more and more people looking for challenges hiking up that trail. To me, that's one of the most difficult trails in the front country. It's not an official trail, But over the years, it's become a social trail that we see more and more people on.
So
And
I
Susie,
just
can you
wanted
talk
to,
about our maps and the type of things that we use to use during operations?
oh yeah, so we just wanted you to see some of the maps. I'm sure a lot of you use your digital GPS apps. What we've got here is a satellite view, and the yellow lines, we can actually see where the helicopter has flown. So you can see where the hiker is, where search and rescue are. We have the ability to follow our teams up those trails. And then the red line is the track of the search and rescue as they went up the trail. So I wanted you to see that when you use your GPS app, practice going through the different layers before you actually get on the trail. So the other one is a different layer. It looks like it's either Gaia or CalTopo. I'm not sure which, but you can see how it's different. It's cool because it shows the contour lines and all the different trails. So it's super important that you carry multiple maps, that you know where you are, and also when you're on the trail, that you turn around and look behind you, that you have a situational awareness of where I am, where have I been. If you're off trail, and going off trail is okay, it's just more difficult to find you. But if you're trying to retrace your steps, if you've left some rock cairns, that would help you a lot to make sure that you can come out.
Okay, we just threw out some common courtesy points while hiking on trails. The last point is one I would like to spend a little bit time on. As I mentioned earlier, our trails are very prominent in the social media post. People from out of the area come and they want to go on these trails. And we just suggest that you try not to deviate from the known trails or take shortcuts. It's, we don't want, people to get lost or get cliffed out, as Susie mentioned, trying to get that perfect picture at sunset. So try to stay on the known trails as much as possible. So we talked a little bit about our organization. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We're made up completely of volunteers. We don't charge for rescue services, and we pretty much self-fund ourselves. So if someone's starting new, someone's joining the team brand new, and they don't have a lot of experience in equipment, they can anticipate probably putting up about $2,000, $2,500 of their own money in order to get the equipment that we use, uniforms, lights, carabiners, other technical equipment. So that's what individuals have to come up in order to be qualified to go out on our team. But we also have a lot of team equipment. We have 15 vehicles, 4x4 specialized vehicles. We have computers. The technology part of search and rescue over the last 10 to 15 years has just exploded. So there's a lot of things we can use on computers, satellites, thermal imaging type of equipment. We have a couple drones that we are now implementing on the team to help look for people. So there's a lot of things that cost money, and 90% of that money comes from donations. The sheriff department takes care of our gas and maintains our vehicles, but everything else, from stretchers to medical equipment, that's all provided by donations from the community. So if you're looking for some place to put some money as a tax donation to a charity at the end of the year, please keep us in mind.
And
Okay.
don't forget our e-bike team.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I should say that. Yeah. So we just developed a e-bike response team. We got donated 4 e-bikes from Trek, And we've already used them for several searches and some rescues in order to access people much quicker. So it's a great tool that we're implementing now. Okay, I think our last slide is we want to talk about our 60th year anniversary that's coming up.
Yeah, so in order to celebrate our 60th year, we want to open our station to you all. And we have the address there, 66 South San Antonio Road. We're near San Marcos High School off of Hollister. It's going to be Saturday, October 1st from 11 to 4. And we'd love to have you come and visit us and see our equipment, our toys, talk about what your needs are, how you've helped us, how we can help you. That would be awesome to see you there.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending this Zoom call. We hope that it was informative and, a little bit more about search and rescue in Santa Barbara County. I'd like to thank the public library for inviting us and letting us share this time with everybody. So with that, I think we'll open up to questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susie and Nelson, for your super informative presentation. Let's get to some questions in the chat. So we have one. So how are calls from satellite devices routed, like Spot or Garmin InReach? Are there superior products in this genre?
I've had both of those devices. I currently have an InReach. Doesn't mean that it's better than the Spot. It's just one that works for me. I can have a conversation back and forth with people at home if I need to, or I can communicate to other team members who have an InReach, and that's been quite valuable. But as technology goes, I think all the GPSs are becoming very valuable.
And another one. So I've had a number of close encounters with Southern Pacific rattlesnakes in Los Padres, including once on Cathedral Peak in our front country. I've often wondered how I and search and rescue should respond if my daughter or I had been bitten in such a tough location.
That comes to communication. That is the #1 item in your first aid kit. So you're on Cathedral Peak, and unfortunately, maybe you put your hand where a snake was, or your foot where a snake was, and your daughter or you get bit. We have to assume that it is an envenomation. We're not going to even wait for it to be a dry bite. But what you need to do is to get to anti-venom at the local emergency room as soon as possible. So that means that you should have the ability to call 911. They will dispatch us, and if we're fortunate, it would be aviation also, so perhaps they can get to you sooner. Otherwise, we're going to get to you as fast as we can and carry you out. You could cover the wound, but don't put a tourniquet on, don't put ice on it. What you need is anti-venom, and if you have a pen and you can mark the leading edge of that swelling, it would be with the time, that would be helpful. But they're going to automatically, in the emergency department, give you several vials of the anti-venom.
Yeah, and for us older generation, the old adage, cut and suck is out. Don't do that.
No, please.
You're not solving anything. You're probably creating more problems as far as cutting tissue and muscles. So as Susie said, the best thing to do is mark it if you have a pen, keep track of any swelling, discoloration, keep the person calm, keep the extremity that's bitten lower than the heart as much as possible. And as she said, make that call as soon as possible so that we can get the resources going to you.
And I think a fun one. So what are some of your most memorable rescues, and what are the most common type of rescues?
Well, lately, the most common are heat illnesses. Yeah, I mean, people just underestimate our backcountry, and they get started even if they've done the hike before. They're 2 hours into their hike, and now they realize that they're in trouble. So I think heat emergencies now, today, or this week is our most common emergency.
Another real common one is people go out to watch a sunset. They'll hike to a prominent point like Inspirational Point and to watch the sunset, and they have a great time. The sun sets, and then all of a sudden they realize that they don't have a flashlight, and there's like 10% battery life on their phone, and there's no moon. So they're out there without any real light source, and they can't find the trail, but they have enough battery, just enough battery to call 911 and say, hey, we're lost, and we're, give us a general location, and then the battery fully dies. So we go out there, and we have enough information and enough knowledge about the trails that we pretty much know where they will probably be. But that's a pretty common type of search scenario that we have that pops up on the front country.
Do you have any memorable rescues?
It depends what category you want to put them in, but I would say maybe one of the most satisfying for me happened some years ago. We are part of what they call a Mountain Rescue Association, and there's teams located throughout the United States, and quite a few in California. And when there's a major search going on, when someone's been missing for a number of days, as you can imagine, the pool of volunteer search and rescue people after a few days gets depleted pretty quickly. People can take off work, but only for so long. And so if a search goes on for 2, 3, 4 days, we have a mutual aid system in place where we can reach out to other mountain rescue teams, other search and rescue teams in California, and coordinate that through the Office of Emergency Services, and we will go help other counties. And some years ago, we got a call for a missing hunter that was up pretty much on the border of California, Oregon. And he had been missing for close to 3 days when we got the call. And it was a major push from Southern California. We actually had probably about 75 searchers. And we met down at Van Nuys Airport. We all loaded onto a C-130 plane, and we flew up to Shasta area, landed at Shasta Airport, and then we drove into the search base and got there late at night. The next day, myself and 2 other team members, we were dispatched to a specific area to search. And by this time, I think it was day 4, day 5 that he was missing. It was an 84-year-old man who was hunting with his sons, and they just finished breakfast. He said, "Hey, sons, go ahead. I'll do the dishes. I'll catch up to you." And so they took off to go to a hunting location. That was the last they saw of him. Apparently what happened is that there was a fork in the trail. The sons took the right, and best we can determine, the dad took the left turn. So this individual, he was out. He didn't have any supplies other than his rifle. And we spent the day searching this drainage area. We got pretty deep into it. And then towards the late afternoon, we got a call from the search base that they wanted us to return because they were going to give us another assignment. And so we were working our way back up to the rendezvous point where we'd get a ride out. But we had to climb up out of this canyon first. And as we were climbing up out of the creek, I heard a whistle. And as Susie says, we all carry whistles, and it's recommended that you carry a whistle because you can hear a whistle much further away, and it's very distinct. So I heard a whistle, and my first thought is, well, it's another search and rescue team blowing their whistle, trying to get a response from this missing person. So I blew my whistle and I got the whistle back, and then we got on the radio and say, is anybody else, any other search team blowing a whistle? And there was no response. No one was saying that they were blowing a whistle. So we started heading up basically a 40-degree slope, and kept blowing a whistle. And finally we made voice contact, and it was this hunter, 84 years old, been out for 4+ days, very little water. He was stuck on a cliff, and he couldn't go anywhere. And so we rigged up a rope system. We belayed him down to an area where then we could walk him out. And it took us a couple hours, but we walked him back out of the road. And his family was at the search base. And so we were able to deliver him to his family, and he actually survived very well. He was a great 84-year-old hunter, but he just got stuck on a cliff. And if he had not had that whistle, we would never have known that he was there. And he even mentioned that several times different helicopters flew over him, and one like within 10 feet over his head, and they never saw him. Of course, he was a hunter. He was in camouflage gear, so that didn't help him. But anyway, that just stood out to me over the years. That's why I joined search and rescue, is to go out there and help find these people who get into particular situations that they can't get out themselves.
No, that is absolutely a magnificent story. And then out of respect of our speaker's time and my time, I'll give us one more question. So what do you do if you have no phone signal?
I'm sorry, without?
If you have no phone signal.
Oh, you have had no phone signal. So in the old days, before cell phones were around, that was a common question that we received. So here's a couple of thoughts and suggestions. Susie mentioned situational awareness. So try to know the trail that you're hiking on. If you've never hiked it before, have a map, a hard copy map. I use my phone and the maps on my phone all the time. I carry extra batteries. But if I'm going to some place that I know that is not going to be in cell service, so I can't download maps, then I'll bring a printed copy of a map with me. And they're so easy these days to print something off and to have it. You don't need to go to the local REI or the old camping stores around here to bring, to buy a 7.5-minute topographical map. It's very easy just to print one off the internet someplace. So have a map, kind of know where you're going is important. But if you get to a point where you say, hey, I don't recognize where I'm at, I might be lost, and hey, I don't have a cell signal. What am I going to do? First of all, don't panic. Take a couple big breaths, sit down, grab some water, think about, well, where was the last place I knew where I was? And do you think you can get to it? If you think you can get to it very easily without getting further lost, then try it. If you question whether or not you can get out, then don't try. Stay put. If you've got a cell phone, you've got good power, but you don't have a signal, if you can safely, go high. Climb up and to get a signal, get a line of sight signal to a transmitting tower. So that might also help you. Before any of this happens, before you even step foot onto a trail, are you going with anybody? Or are you hiking alone? Did you tell anybody where you're going? Did you tell anybody when you'd be back? Did you tell anybody what to do if you don't get back on the time that you're supposed to get back? Are you supposed to be at work at a certain time? Are you supposed to be at a dinner engagement with a family at a certain time? Well, tell someone that you're going hiking. And if you're not there by then, tell them where you're going to hike, where you're going to park your car, so that if you don't show up, then they can call 911 and give the information to the dispatch, which will get to us. And now we have a starting point. So if you find yourself lost, take a breath, don't panic, don't start running. Think about where you came from. Think about, can I get back to there and make my way back to a known location? If you don't, stay put and just wait it out so that we can find you in a location.
Wow. Once again, thank you so much for your presentation, Susie and Nelson. And thanks to James for helping coordinate this. And another mention that our next trail talk will be next month on September 15th at 6:30. And this one will be in person at the Central Library in our Faulkner Gallery. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
See ya.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. See you out in the trails.
See ya.